Hi, I'm Senator Stan Kuchar. Thanks for joining us today, and it's my pleasure to have a chat with Corey Hirsch. Boy, when I was a kid, one of my dreams was playing in the NHL. That was never going to happen. So it's great, Corey, to be able to talk to you. Some of our viewers, I don't know how come they could have missed it, but may not know much about you. Why don't you share a little bit about yourself, what you've done, what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I former professional hockey player, played with the Vancouver Canucks, drafted by the New York Rangers, played in the 1994 Olympics, won a silver medal with Canada, lost in the final to Sweden. So from there, that's my hockey story. Went on to coach goaltenders in the National Hockey League, coached the World Junior goaltenders, ended up in broadcasting. So did some TV for Sportsnet. Now I do radio for the Vancouver Canucks. So I do all the color commentary on those broadcasts. And, I guess my legacy and my story is that I was on my rise to playing in the National Hockey League. I came, I guess to a moment where I would say in my mind, I just felt like something had broke. I was getting repetitive, deep, dark thoughts that I didn't want to be there. I didn't know why they were there. And these are the Coles Notes, of course, version. But this was all while I was trying to make the National Hockey League. I would later be diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, but I really was trying to hide everything from my teammates, from my coaches, due to the stigma. I mean, this was I was 21, 22, 23. And due to the stigma, I went into hiding. But eventually, panic attacks and anxiety and mental health issues need to be dealt with. And 2 years ago, my story came out in the Players Tribune. My fight since then has been to educate youth through mental health, to educate, corporations, business, whoever will listen in trying to end the stigma of mental health so that they don't have to go through what I went through years ago.
Well, that's it's such a challenging story. Just the whole idea of being a goalie, to me, is incredibly crazy. I frankly can't think of anything worse than standing there and have someone shoot a disc of rubber at 100 miles an hour at me. So my gosh, for that. But then that other incredible courage to actually have a mental health problem, a mental illness, and take on such a challenging career.
But when I look back at the time being a young hockey player, I always thought that, if I had exposed, what was going on with me, that people wouldn't be able to, or coaches and general managers wouldn't want you on their team. Who wants a goalie with you're supposed to be mentally tough. You're supposed to be mentally strong. So I tried to keep it hidden. But like dealing with, say you have a broken leg, eventually you have to deal with it. You have to go get it fixed. And mental health is the same way. But, the resilience and what I was taught through hockey is that you just kept plowing forward. And since then, it's taken me, it took me 10 years after diagnosis to find proper treatment, but then it took me another 10 years to come out with my story. So it's such a personal experience, and there are so many stories like mine out there. It just happens to be that I was a professional athlete going through it, and people really looked at professional athletes as immune to something like that. How do you play in the NHL? But the ultimate, thing is that none of us are immune to it. Doctors, lawyers, construction workers, professional athletes, insurance, whatever you do in life as human beings, we are susceptible to it. So, I had two choices. I got to the point where, if you read the story, that I almost took my own life because I didn't see another way out. But there is another way out. And I had two options. I could finally finish, what I was, ending my life or harming myself, or I could get help. And, I made the right decision. Finally, I went to get help. I got a diagnosis. I got treatment. And I have a wonderful life today. I'm a broadcaster. I've played in the National Hockey League. I've played in the Olympics. So there is a better life out there if you are out there struggling right now.
Well, that's a really important message. It's a message of hope, and my goodness gracious, in these days of COVID-19 and here in Nova Scotia with the traumatic events, that message of hope is so important. And thank you for sharing that. But along with that message of hope, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, my gosh, here's a person who is to play at that level, the stress of the game, the constantly being at the top of your peak of performance, and also having then this other challenge that you're dealing with. It must have taken an incredible amount of effort to do that.
I look back now and I think about that quite a bit because at the time I just kept going, doing what I wanted to do. I just had a focus. And hockey actually, I feel like hockey saved me, right? It really gave me a focus. And when I was on the ice, that was my safe place. That's where I felt the best. But I look back and I probably don't give myself the credit for the strength and resilience that I had back then to be able to have a mental illness or a mental health problem. And I hadn't made it to the NHL yet. I was still trying to get in, and to be able to park those other things and to be able to focus on making the team shows, I should probably be more proud of that, I guess, is what I think.
Oh, you should.
But I look back and I did what I had to do. I did what I was conditioned to do. But all through growing up, and this is where a sport for me really taught me resilience, taught me strength, taught me inner strength, how to deal with things. So if anything out of sport, and there's a lot of people out there that have children in sports, and yes, we all hope that they'll play in the NHL or whatever. But the main thing that I got out of sport was that inner strength. And then it gave me the courage eventually to come out with my own story, to try and show that, that none of us are immune to this, that there's a better life out there.
One of my colleagues, Chantal Petitclerc, is a multi-decorated Olympian, and that what you're saying is exactly what she says. It's this incredible inner strength that you have to bring. You have to find it in yourself. You have to bring it forward, and you have to deal with it. Now, sometimes it's almost harder for guys because we're supposed to always be wonderfully tough. And would that ever condition a consideration for you?
This is going to sound pretty harsh, but masculinity almost killed me. It really did. Because of the fact that I was a man, I was supposed to suck it up. I was supposed to not talk about my problems. I was supposed to just deal with what I was going through. Be a man. Men don't talk about their stuff. Men don't talk about their problem. Well, where did that get me? I mean, right? Like, again, that almost ended my life by feeling like I wasn't able to reach out because I was less of a man than everybody else. When in fact, getting help is probably the most manly and strengthful thing you can do. It's bettering yourself. It's giving yourself a better life, giving those around you, a better person to be with. And there's nothing that's not manly about getting help. It's, it's imperative that our men, and I speak to masculinity, that, our suicide rates for men are 3 out of 4 suicides are male. And we need to put a dent in that. And that's because we don't talk about our problems. We don't talk about our feelings. We don't talk about what's bothering us. And I'd like to change that because, it's silly to think that because you want to talk about your stuff or show feelings or show emotions, that makes you less of a man. It makes you more of a man. And I'm here today as proof of that. I really am. That I still live a wonderful life. I'm still in sport. I still help people. I still talk about mental health. And that being a man is getting help.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. And it means so much. It means so much to all the guys that are listening to it, but also to anybody who's listening to this, because it's hard not only for men to go and get help, but it's often hard for anyone to go and get help. And so thanks for pointing that out. I really appreciate that. It's so important.
Yeah. And it's, when I look down the list, when I do talk, I talk about Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps was an Olympic swimmer in the U.S., 23 gold medals, and he suffers with depression. Now, don't tell me you can't win with Michael Phelps. I would take him on my team, maybe not as a goalie, but right. So, Michael Phelps, Clint Malarchuk, Clary Hughes, Sheldon Kennedy. These are all incredible people that, played at the highest level of professional sport or at their own, whatever it was, with mental health issues. And, the resilience and the courage and the strength that they could show, was astounding. And I would take any of them on my team any day.
Yeah, that well said. Well said. Terry Bradshaw. Yeah. Beckham, David Beckham. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And we're coming to a place now where it's okay that back 20 years ago, the stigma was real. Like nobody really talked about it, but we're getting to a much better place. And, more and more people are starting to reach out and our issues now are trying to find different ways to help people and try and find, the system and how we can help people and how we can help all these people that are struggling. And especially with the events of what's going on right now, I encourage people that it's not always going to be like this. I had days where I couldn't get out of bed. I could barely get to practice, and I thought I was doomed to this. And today here I am speaking to you about mental health. So things do get better, and they will get better.
Again, so important, particularly during this time. Those words of encouragement and those words of hope. If there was one or two things that you wanted to leave for the people that are watching this, for them to think about and act on, what would those things be?
Well, I mean, for me, for people to understand that mental health is health. It doesn't matter if you have a broken arm or something that goes wrong with your brain. Our brains are the most complex things we have. They're going to break. We can't expect them to be perfect. And reaching out and getting help is the best thing you will ever do. It'll be the best thing you can do for those around you. The other is, there's so much to talk about. I'll talk to, I guess what's dear to me is that I'm a 47-year-old man, and masculinity is something that's standing in the way of middle-aged men right now. We have our suicide rates are off the charts for middle-aged men, and that we need to end that. We need to put a dent in it. And I encourage our men out there, talk to somebody, whether it be your spouse or a family member or even a buddy. So what I was always afraid of was that if I came out with my stuff, what would my guy friends think of me? What would they think of me? And you know what? When my article came out, I probably have never been more loved and more accepted in my life than when my article about having obsessive compulsive disorder came out. My buddies always check in on me. And really, what I was afraid of with masculinity, there's nothing to be afraid of because we all struggle and we all go through stuff.
That's a really, really good way to put it. Your buddies will always look after you because they are your buddies.
Absolutely. And I'll look after them. I'll return the favor. It doesn't make you less of a man to talk about your stuff. It actually makes you a better man.
Yeah. Well, so well said. I just want to thank you so much for spending this valuable time with us. And for your message of resilience and your message of courage and your message of hope.
Well, thanks for having me. And like I said, we are going to get through this, and it's going to be awesome when we get out of it, and the resilience and courage that we've all shown through this. And I look forward to it when we do.
Absolutely. All right. You take good care now.